And APB, American Protection Bureau, voted #1 best on Long Island for all your security needs. Call 631-390-9050. That's 631-390-9050. APB.
You need a body shop? You need engine repair? Auto Excellence, Collision Specialists, 631-261-6420. That's 631-261-6420. Auto Excellence. Jimmy, I gotta take a dump.
What?
No, I mean I need a dumpster.
Well, for all those needs, you need to call Big V Dumpster Rental, Long Island, New York, 631-900-DUMP. Elm Logistics, for all your logistic needs, call 631-299-3595. That's 631-299-3595. Elm Global Logistics, pride, performance, and partnerships.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the second edition of Wrestling Remembered. This is ESO, and I'm here with the player Benny Scala and What a Day Joe Lowry. What's going on, guys?
What a day, what a day.
Another day in Playerville.
Yeah.
Playerville, there you go.
So how's it going, guys? What's new? What's What a Day got going on this week?
What a day's busy again. Twin Bill Baseball Podcast. We're going live tonight at What a Day in Centerville. Looking forward to tomorrow night's action on the Monty and Faro in the 30. That's going to be exciting. But other than that, just a lot of everything and a whole bunch of nothing. How's that?
Sounds about normal. What about you, Benny? What's going on, man?
Much of the same. Busy. So Monday, Brittany Brown, the Boston Bear Girl, and I recorded the fourth episode of True Crime with the Bad Girl and the Player. The subject was Tamara Sitch, a.k.a. Sunny.
Ooh.
And then last night it was Dan and Benny with Gary Morgenstein, who used to write for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Yeah, good guy. And we also did Twin Bill yesterday.
Yeah, we're just rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Twin Bill. We covered epic home runs in the history of baseball. We got this. And then tomorrow we got the 30, which we're all going to be gunning for the gold.
30. I'm winning that title. I am winning that title.
Joe, I think Vegas odds right now are about 7-6. So
they had me up there. DraftKings had me up there last week. I don't know what happened, but
they keep narrowing. So I mean, they think the money is on you right now.
Yeah,
it's that championship advantage at the end. He gets to go last. That's tough.
And I mean, I got to be honest. It was very controversial last week. It wasn't a clean win.
Well, Benny, stop messing with my microphone when I'm on.
There you go.
I think Phil had his foot on the ropes. Phil did like a superstar Billy Graham when he pinned Bruno.
Yeah. I thought it was weird. I was leading that whole match, and then at the very end, he came from behind. I'm like, oh man, I'm telling you, almost felt like Johnny Rods and Jose Estrada.
Yeah,
almost,
I mean, and I got
the Duke. I almost got the Duke.
I got a 2-point penalty, and that kind of kicked me out of the finals.
Yeah, you keep killing yourself for these penalties, player.
Well, I mean, there was never a cursing penalty. They must have just, I have to check the 30 bylaws because that wasn't in there the last time I looked. Cursing was allowed.
I haven't signed anything yet, so we'll have to figure that out.
So,
yeah.
I think it's whatever Monty feels on the moment. But
there are no rules. What rules? It's like the WWE Hall of Fame. It's in Vince McMahon's head, right?
No kidding, huh? Oh boy, Vinnie Mac, not looking too hot. You see him at the UFC thing the other night? Oh my God, he's not looking well. I don't know what's going on.
He looks like Wayne Newton's doppelganger.
I'm talking
Wayne modern Wayne Newton.
I don't know what's up.
Yeah, he does sort of. Either that or he has that weird, like an evil Walt Disney look to him.
Yeah. And it's on purpose. Ever since Endeavor took over, he's done this move, this new look here. It's just off the wall.
I don't get it because nobody really wants to look at him anyway. Just stay at home and count your money.
Just bring me back to Saturday morning championship wrestling. I'll be
bring back the Davey O'Hannon versus Silvano Souza. I'm good.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Israel Mattia.
There you go.
Wouldn't a Saturday morning wrestling program be great again? We're just a
Oh
week.
yeah.
Yeah, we're
I
just,
mean, I watch it on YouTube all the time on Saturday mornings at that time. I just put it on there just to put it on there. It's great.
It was such a simple formula.
Yeah.
It was squash matches, interviews, and the occasional Pearl Harbor during the interview to set up set up the feud for or the whatever event was happening at the Garden, and it sold tickets.
And it was always a tag team title championships that changed hands on television.
Always, yeah.
Everything else didn't change hands, so it's
and it was never a clean win.
and you never saw Hulk Hogan on TV unless it was an interview.
exactly.
You rarely saw Bruno back in the day. Bruno rarely, when
yeah.
he was in his heyday, he would occasionally promote his next match for the Garden, and he usually got attacked by Toru Tanaka, whoever it was. I think even one time Shohei Baba, when Baba was in New York, he put Bruno to sleep.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Serious stuff.
Backlund never really made an appearance. If he did, it was a squash match or a scientific match, or the ever famous Harvard step test routine, which Sergeant Slaughter took him down with.
and his failed attempts at the Persian clubs.
Oh, remember that? Yeah.
That
was the prelude to the title change. Yep.
I mean, I still, whenever you mention any one of those moments, like I remember exactly where I was and like how I felt. I mean, it was still so real to us.
Yeah. Yesterday was the my 42nd anniversary of the night I got Magnificent Morocco's blood on my hands.
Oh, wow.
Quick story on that. December 5th, 1981, steel cage match, Boston Garden. Backlund and Morocco doing their thing. Morocco gets tied up in the ropes. He's bleeding like a mad. Backlund walks out for the win. I run over to the ring entrance, and I take my hand and I swipe Morocco's forehead. And I had blood on my hands. I kept it on my hands all weekend long until I went to school so I could show everybody that I got Morocco's blood on my hands. And he didn't like that very much. He looked at me.
That was gonna be my question. How did he react to that?
And then I interviewed him a few years back. He doesn't even remember that, but
right.
I remember fondly. And then when I did my podcast back then, somebody on Facebook actually had a picture of Morocco coming out of the cage at the Garden that night. So 40 years later, somebody sends me a photo of Morocco leaving the cage, the Garden that night, right before I wiped my hands on it. So I always tell that story. I was very overzealous when I was a kid back then,
But that's how much we love wrestling.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to make sure the blood was real, and boy, it was. It was on my hand for a whole weekend.
Nice. So you guys ready to get this going?
Yeah. What do we got? We got some good stuff this week.
Yeah, we do. Yo, Benny, why don't you get us started?
I think I'm first up. So we're going to cover December 4th through December the 10th. So December 4th, 1991, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. WWF Commissioner Jack Tunney announces that Hulk Hogan has been stripped of the WWF Championship as a result of the controversial finish to his match with The Undertaker at this Tuesday in Texas. This was not announced until that weekend's episode of WWF Superstars. Tunney also announced that the winner of the upcoming Royal Rumble would be awarded the WWF Championship. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was Ric Flair. But I wanted to make a remark about Tunney. Jack Tunney, to me, and this is just me, as a wrestling fan, he was my last link to kayfabe. I mean, we knew that he wasn't really a commissioner. We knew that he was
the greatest commissioner of all time. What do you?
But yeah, I mean, just when you they zoomed in on him, and Jack Tunney, and he's behind the desk, and he looks so official and
so important. Yep.
He did right. I mean, he presided over the contract signing with Hulk and Andre.
That's what
WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
Now he does. I mean, he does come from a legendary wrestling family. His dad, Jack Tunney, was the promoter in Toronto.
Oh wow! Okay.
Right. He was when Bruno.
Wasn't that the deal?
Bruno.
When he took over that territory, that he would keep Tunney on.
Yeah, I think
that
so.
might have been, but when Bruno won the championship, Bruno was blackballed all over the country. Vince Sr. at one point screwed him, double booked him, and Bruno made one of the bookings, didn't make the other. He was on his way out, so when he went to go wrestle somewhere else, you can't, you're suspended. You got suspended everywhere, and pretty much everywhere in the United States, but
wow.
Tunney took a chance. Frank Tunney took a chance on Bruno. He was there like a year and a half. I guess at that point the WWF was faltering, Then Vince Senior called Bruno back, and he said, Vince Senior said, "What would it take for you to come back?" He said, "A title match with Buddy Rogers." Of course, the rest is history. But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, Bruno and Tunney asked Bruno, "Would you?" I guess they had every other Sunday at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. He said, "Would you still honor your commitment?" So for several years after that, Bruno would travel to Toronto every other Sunday just to honor the commitment, just out of gratitude to Tunney for reviving his wrestling career, because he pretty much was going to go back into construction. He was a construction worker.
Yeah, the thing about Toronto, I get reminded of back in the day in the magazines and later on cable, when they walked to the ring, they were on this ramp from the dressing room to the ring. They didn't enter the ring, the conventional way, going up the stairs.
Yes, you're right. Yes,
straight walkway, and I thought that was like, oh, that kind of like, Andre would walk out, he'd be like, he was big enough as it is, but geez, you put him on this ramp.
Yeah, then his head scraping the ceiling, right?
I'm like, oh my goodness, but a lot of history up there in Toronto, the wrestling.
Yeah, so I very fond memories of Jack Tunney.
Nice. It looks like I'm up, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. 12/4/2000, Lincoln, Nebraska. WCW Commissioner Mike Sanders awards the vacant WCW tag team titles to The Perfect Event, a.k.a. Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak, obviously former WWE alum. This is the 15th title change since April 10th. I'll be honest with you. I did not watch Nitro after 99. And I'll tell you why. By now, December of 2000, WCW is on a downward spiral.
They're circling the drain.
Ratings are in the tank. Everyone is way overpaid, grossly overpaid. TBS, everybody, TNT, they're all looking to overhaul the company. Not a good time in WCW unless you were the Kevin Nashes and the Scott Halls and you were making six figures for 1 or 2 appearances a month and all that stuff. But the funny thing, when I'm looking at the date on this, did you know it was only 3 months later that Vince bought WCW? So this is, you talk about 15 tag title championship changes in 7-8 months. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like this.
How many of those titles did you capture, Benny?
0.
Unbelievable. But that's the one thing that catch out. It was 2000 when Nitro just really plummeted. And like I said, 3 months later, boom, Vince McMahon buys WCW, and the rest is history on that end. So
yeah, I mean, you're right. That's a good point. I mean, by December of 2000, so definitely circling the drain.
Yeah. When you have Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak winning the world titles, when neither one of them had ever gotten over at that point, that shows you where that.
Well, and when you have Mike Sanders as the commissioner, you're really circling the drain.
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't watch it then. I didn't know. I think it was like 98, 99. I did 2 TVs. One of them went away, and I just stuck to WWE.
Above average Mike Sanders, and his finisher was the 3.0.
The 3.0.
Well, yeah, WWF was must watch at that point. WCW was.
Yeah.
I mean, we were full Attitude Era going.
Correct.
Full blown.
So next, we're going to fast forward 1 more year, and we have the first iteration of Vince McMahon's Kiss My Ass Club, as Vince ends up losing a match, and although he is supposed to kiss The Rock's ass, gets swerved into smooching Rikishi's ass instead.
oh my God! 2
of the angles that really, I mean, they were kind of cringy as it was that Kiss My Ass Club that Vince had, and that stink face era with Rikishi. I'm sorry, both of those when they happened, I was like, oh, felt so bad for the recipients of those. But
you felt it, and smelt it. You felt it and smelt it.
Who actually had kissed his ass full blown?
Okay,
Regal did, right?
Regal, JR.
Yep, JR did. I remember that was embarrassing.
God, talk about humiliation.
Wasn't Trish Stratus involved in an angle with that too?
Might have been
something like that. I think she had to get. This is full blown Attitude Era right here. This is like raunchy as you can get. 01.
Oh, this is Vince McMahon just living his fantasies at this point. He's just he can do whatever he wants, and he knows it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
oh my God. That promo was like shown like every week on Raw. Rikishi going into Vince McMahon.
But you have to give him credit. He was willing to take it too.
Yep.
He took the stink face. So
unbelievable. Great memories.
Absolutely.
So what do we got? What do we got next here?
So yesterday, December the 5th, December 5th, 1951, so we have to wish a one-day belated happy 72nd birthday to Larry Whistler. Nobody knows who Larry Whistler is, but
Ah,
everybody knows who Larry Zbyszko is.
sure.
And he ignited, in my opinion, the greatest feud in wrestling history when he turned on his real-life mentor, Bruno Sammartino. I mean, what? I don't care. To me, that will always be the greatest feud of all time. And there was a certain bit of reality. I mean, Bruno was his mentor. Larry Zbyszko, when he was like 16, 17 years old, got a car. His mom worked in the same church, I guess, that Bruno went to. And so he got Bruno's address. One day he sums up enough nerve to drive to Bruno's house, and he sees Bruno sunning in the backyard. He goes through the hedges, which, some of those hedges are pretty nasty. Probably has all kinds, probably bleeding and, scratched up. And Bruno was very gracious to him, and they started chatting. Yeah, friendship was formed. And, so
Unbelievable.
That feud went against everything that up till then, it was very formulaic. Bruno's opponents. They build up a guy usually from another territory, have him go through, usually it was a couple of prelims and then either Danucci or Pugliese, Bruno's cousin or Bruno's best friend, either that or that they'd attack Arnold Skolin, get Bruno all enraged and set up the match. And then if it was a really good feud, they'd get 3 MSG sellouts out of it.
There you go.
Then the guy went down the card a little bit and eventually went out of the territory. But this is like a homegrown talent who'd been there for a while, turning on his mentors. It worked though.
Yep.
They could have printed money with that feud.
I know we were talking before the show, Saturday morning wrestling and all that stuff, but that was one hell of a blade job Bruno had.
Bruno to me is the greatest wrestler of all time, but maybe the worst blader of all time.
But he cut himself pretty good. And,
I remember there was literally a pool of blood in the ring because I remember just jumping off.
Zbyszko needed police escorts to and from arenas after that because once he came back to New York and all that, forget about it.
Well, Zbyszko sometimes had to hide in the trunk of a car just to get crazy stuff.
I'm sure.
And my vision of Larry Zbyszko is that AWA and into the WCW, NWA, WCW era. And I have to say, I was never impressed with Zbyszko. I always thought he was kind of like a second-rate wrestler because of the eras that I saw him. In AWA, he was never presented right, even though they tried to make him a main eventer. He never came across that way. And by the time he got into the WCW, NWA era, he was already past his prime and just really, really wasn't fitting in. And it's cool to hear some of these older things to know where Zbyszko came from. I know wasn't he second generation also?
Yes, was it Stanley?
I don't think he was related to him.
No.
I
don't know that for a fact.
I tell you what, though, Bruce, I completely agree with you. He really, he won the AWA. I think he was the last AWA champion. But the other thing is he was
fighting with Lawler,
Vern Gagne's son-in-law, so I guess that helped just a little bit, right? And he was when he went to WCW, very lackluster. At the end, they were kind of jobbing him out. But I think where he really kind of regained some momentum was as a commentator, during the onset of the NWO, because he really was over as a commentator.
Right. No, I agree. He was great as a commentator. He was that quintessential pro wrestler who could talk and wrestle. I think when he was turned heel in WWF, he had Grand Wizard as his manager, and he didn't need anybody to talk for him.
I tell you what, though, if anybody has 2 minutes, go on YouTube and type in Larry Zbyszko Hall of Fame induction speech.
Oh, yeah.
It's my favorite induction speech of all time.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was good. All right, looks like I'm up now, correct? Yeah. Let me see here. Again, December 5th, 2004, Orlando, Florida. TNA presents Turning Point from Universal Studios. The event is relatively insignificant other than this is Macho Man Randy Savage last professional wrestling match. Now, looking this stuff up, the card was okay. Not a lot of household names. AJ Styles pops out. That was a good one. Jeff Hardy and Randy Savage defeated Jeff Jarrett, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. So TNA at this point was that newfound promotion where I almost want to say that where wrestlers go to die, so to speak. I mean, you got all these has-beens from WWF, WWE, of course, WCW. But like I said, the only momentous thing about this was Macho Man's last match before he retired and so forth. But he didn't die until 2011, which is shocking because he was making movies and everything. He was in decent shape. I'm surprised he didn't wrestle after that.
Yeah,
he 04. He passed in 2011. He was in tons of movies, Spider-Man, all those things. And he was in great shape. I'm shocked that this was his very last wrestling match.
He was 59, I think, but you're right. He was still in really good shape. Right? Definitely in wrestling shape.
And everybody else, want to come in one more time. You would have thought. I honestly think if he did not pass away unceremoniously and obviously quickly, unexpectedly, I meant to say, he might have wrestled a few more times. I think
we might have seen him again.
He would have been good for that one-off or whatever, or something like that. He'd definitely still be announcing somewhere, whether it be AEW, WWE, or wherever.
Right.
That much. But that was very interesting that I got that assignment. But that's what I came up with for that one. So that was pretty
cool. Do you think TNA was AEW with no money?
I would say Dixie Carter owned them at that time, right?
Right.
If I'm correct.
And now they're rebranding back to TNA now, aren't they?
Yeah, they're trying to bring back TNA. I think they don't want the 5-sided ring back. I know that.
Thankfully.
That was like the worst experiment ever. When I see those old videos with Jay Lethal and I see this 5-sided ring, I'm like, what are they? That to me is circus right there. You can no longer call that the squared circle or the ring or whatever.
Right.
You just can't. I know they're trying to be different and all that stuff, but don't bring that back. Don't bring it back.
I saw a picture this week of the first steel cage match ever, and it was actually a circular cage inside of the ring. And it was, I believe, 1938 or something like that. And it was won by pinfall, but it was pretty crazy. Like it looked like, a wrestling ring like we would expect, but inside it was a circular a fencing for the cage.
Like they got it from the circus where the lions were kept or whatever, to keep the audience safe from the lions. That's what it looked like to me.
I think it was 1938. I got to see if I can find that. It came up on my Facebook.
It was on sale at Home Depot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Sears.
Home Depot's been around that long?
It was Sears Roebuck. Come on. They ordered it from the
catalog. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I didn't know Home Depot in 1938.
There you go.
So,
all right, who's up next?
Yeah, let's fast forward another year to North Carolina. Or North Charleston, South Carolina, excuse me.
Okay.
Eric Bischoff's 3.5-year tenure as Raw GM comes to an unceremonious end as he's subject to a mock trial, fired, and then dumped into the back of a trash truck. Oi.
Oi.
Oi. Well, let's face it. Eric Bischoff took 5 minutes of fame and turned it into a career. That you have to be impressed by him. He used a fake resume to get hired by AWA, used fake credentials to become a president of WCW. Man, come on, you got to give the guy some credit, but what a weasel. If there was ever a weasel in this industry, that's him.
That's the biggest work of all right there. When you can get in like that, you're working the workers.
I am like, there's very few people in the wrestling business that I dislike, and he's one of them.
Wow. Okay.
I don't think much of him, and he's one of these people that just loves to hear himself talk. I mean, if you listen to his podcast, I think if the only person that listened to his podcast was himself, he'd still do it.
Oh, you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, he came across to me like he knew what he was doing, but watching the documentaries and watching the downfall of WCW, that man was not a businessman. He was a promoter, yes. He'll do whatever it takes to get the job done and get the butts in the seats. But as a businessman, horrible. He was the number one reason why WCW went bankrupt.
He's another. I mean, Tony Khan. With an unlimited checkbook, except that it really wasn't unlimited because at some point Ted Turner got tired of losing money.
Yeah, and he's always good for a comment or two on the status of pro wrestling nowadays. He keeps himself relevant. You got to give him that. Even for somebody who's technically not in the biz anymore. So he's still.
You mean Bischoff?
Yeah, Bischoff.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that 83 weeks. So, you turned something that happened, 27 years ago and still talking about it. But that's what we do in wrestling.
That's it. 83 weeks to a career.
Right. There you go.
We remember wrestling. That's what we do.
Right.
Shameless plug. Sorry.
No, there is no shame.
There you go.
All right. Well, here I go. And we're back in Toronto. December 6th, 1989. Candy Devine defeated Judy Martin to win the AWA Women's Championship for the 5th time. Devine would be the last woman to hold the title, and the AWA folded within a little bit over a year after that. I mean, they were already circling the drain. This is a relatively, insignificant event, but I wanted to ask the hypothetical question that if take back to 1983 when Hogan wrestled Bockwinkel in front of a sellout crowd at the St. Paul Civic Center, and everybody in that entire arena thought that Hulk was walking out with the title, and they did the typical Dusty finish, and they just DQ'd Hogan. If they had given him the belt, I don't think it would have changed things that much. I mean, I think eventually he would have wound up in WWF. But do you think he could have staved off the demise of WCW for a little while?
The AWA there, you mean?
You mean the AWA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You could,
can't
Bruce. You go ahead.
I don't think I can answer this honestly because Hogan, my Hogan era was that rock and wrestling that started a year later. That's what brought me into wrestling fanhood. So honestly, I don't know where I would be as a wrestling fan if it weren't for that jump of Hulk Hogan over to the WWF.
I mean, that leads to another whole debate, though. Like, could somebody else have carried that ball? I mean, could Mr. Wonderful could he have carried that ball for a little bit, maybe? Or could Piper or could Snuka, if Snuka was,
See, the whole thing here is, if memory serves me right, excuse me, the fact that he didn't win the title that night, it was because there was already some sort of, I don't know if it was a handshake agreement or whatever. Bottom line was 81-82, Hogan asked Vince's dad to take some time off to film Rocky 3. And Vince Sr. was like, no, we have you booked.
Right.
He's like, well, screw it. I'm out of here. So he went to the AWA. He did his movie, went to AWA. But then all of a sudden, Vince Jr. buys WWE, WWF, whatever. And the rest is really history. Would have it staved off AWA for a little while? I don't know. I mean, they were red hot at that time. You saw the arena. There was chaos. I think
it was like 22,000 people, and then
they were throwing everything they could in that ring.
And they had a closed circuit TV across the street, and there was 5,000 people there. I mean,
were you guys exposed to this? Were you guys able to follow this, or was it because I know you guys are kind of both up in the Northeast? Was it something you guys could follow the AWA at that point?
I don't think. I'm trying to think of when AWA came on ESPN. I think it was actually after
80s.
that.
That was late 80s. I got my AWA news really from the wrestling magazines, and they put that cover of Hogan getting robbed on every single wrestling magazine then. So when that hit the newsstands, you knew something was up. But the weird part was by the time that hit the newsstands, he was already coming back to the WWE.
He jumped ship pretty quick after this. It wasn't that much longer. But I always wonder. I mean, you got to know that Vince Jr., he would have done whatever it took to get Hulk in WWF.
How popular was Hogan at that point before he came into the WWF?
He was hugely over in AWA.
Yeah, he was huge.
He was a megastar. I mean,
was he national? I know he had been in Rocky, but was he that national figure?
He was getting big in the Midwest, and I do believe his wife, his ex-wife now, was selling the original Hulkamania T-shirts out of the back of her car, because he would put those shirts on and pose for the wrestling magazines, and everybody what's Hulkamania? Like you talk about what is it? Vince grabbed a hold of that right away when that happened. He was hot. He was very hot. His stock soared right after that.
It wasn't like a Backlund deal. I mean, Backlund was a total unknown when he came into the WWF.
Right.
Hogan was a known commodity to hardcore wrestling fans. They knew what he had done in AWA
and the movie theaters.
Right. Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thunderlips.
I think legend has it that Vern Gagne offered the Iron Sheik $100,000 to break his leg in the title match at Madison Square Garden in December. That's both those men say that's true. So, the Iron Sheik no longer with us, but Hogan has said publicly that he was told that this could be a dangerous situation. And that's how bad the business was getting for everybody else, because Vince once they knew Hulk Hogan was coming to WWE, that territory system started to decline. And we all know what happened after that. But Vern Gagne was adamant that he had a handshake deal with Hogan and all that. And Hogan said, I'm out of here. And I think that had a lot to do with that title match that, he supposedly wanted, then he didn't win it. And I felt bad for Mean Gene Oakland had to make the announcement after all that. Stanley Blackburn. And to get everybody home safe, Hogan had to throw Bockwinkel out and throw him into the, get him down the runway. And then Heenan had to take a few bumps so Bockwinkel could go back to the dressing room. That crowd was hot that night. Very, very hot. You can YouTube those videos. You'll see it. It was the night Hogan got robbed. It was all over every wrestling magazine. I remember that growing up.
Absolutely.
So let's go across the pond to London, England in 1998. We have WWE. It's still WWF at that time. They presented the UK exclusive Capital Carnage pay-per-view. The card itself, relatively insignificant. However, the show is noted for JR had his second bout attack of Bell's palsy just after learning that his mother had passed away. Yeah, for reasons unknown, when he did come back, they tried to turn him heel, but that didn't really work out because when he kicked Michael Cole in the balls, the crowd popped. So
of course, easiest way to turn the crowd. Yeah, any wrestler rather just have him kick Michael Cole in the nuts.
Yeah, it really was. It was a relatively insignificant card. Draws defeated Mosh. Gangrel defeated Al Snow. The Headbangers defeated the Legion of Doom. I don't know how that is ever possible. That would have never happened in WCW.
That had to have been like a DQ finish or something, right? That had to have been, no way was that a pinfall.
That couldn't be a clean finish. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, Val Venus defeated Goldust. Tiger Ali Singh defeated Edge. Christian and Sable defeated Jacqueline and Mark Merrow. Ken Shamrock defeated Steve Blackman. Triple H defeated Jeff Jarrett. The New Age Outlaws defeated D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry. The Rock defeated X-Pac and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Defeated Kane, Mankind, and The Undertaker with Paul Bearer.
Sounds like WrestleMania.
I was going to say, there was a lot of matches there.
Yeah, so now take a look at this insignificant card going on in the UK. And now compare it to last week's Survivor Series.
Oh, yeah.
11 matches. A lot of stuff that it may not be top of the card, guys, but there was so much going on there. Where the Survivor Series, we had 5 matches. And honestly, 3 of them... They felt like they were part of a Monday Night Raw.
I hear what you're saying, Bruce. I think because it was new back then. Plus, don't forget, we're pre-SmackDown here, so we don't have a brand split. You had the same stars on every week, and that's what they did. And they pulled this off. I mean, relatively insignificant, but the fact is they're in London, England, holding a pay-per-view, which I'm pretty sure at that time had to have been one of the first times that's ever been done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, hey, there's money, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so moving on. Looks like I'm back up. 12-6, 2004, Charlotte, North Carolina. We got Lita defeating Trish Stratus to win the WWE Women's Championship on Monday Night Raw. This will be the last time a women's match will close out the show until October 4th, 2016. When Sasha Banks, I'm not going to call her Eggnog.
Oh, come on, man.
Defeats Charlotte Flair to win the WWE Women's Championship.
She's got that eggnog voice. When you drink eggnog and you have that phlegm in your throat? Yeah. That's Sasha Banks all the time.
Mercedes Moné, as we all know her now. This is right out of 2016, October 4th. This is when they just came out of, NXT. Because NXT was relatively new. Sasha Banks, Charlotte, and all them. Obviously, the original 4 horsewomen, great match and so forth. But what I found out during this was, Trish and Lita main evented. But you know what else happened that night? It's the night that Fozzy and Chris Jericho hosted the Rock and Roll Limbo A Go-Go.
Oh, wow.
Featuring Divas Candice, who's right behind me right there. The Maria Molina and Stacy Keibler.
Wow.
And Christy, I think they meant to say Christy Hemme, won in the Limbo. But everything was stopped short by Muhammad Hassan and Khosrow Davari, who let everyone know that Hassan's debut would come on Raw next week. So, that's an interesting tutelage. You got the women's main event there, but the most talked about highlight of the night was the Y2J and Fozzy. I didn't know Fozzy and them been around that long. I know he's been singing for years, but I didn't know Fozzy, the group, was around that long. So that's a while ago.
Same here.
Yep, everything. So that was the highlight for that night.
Yeah, Fozzy, he's been involved with Fozzy since before he came into WWF. That's been that was his
20
side
plus
project
years.
for.
Wow.
I didn't know that. I mean,
Yeah,
I thought
me
he
neither.
was like
Me neither.
I knew he was a Kiss fan and he likes music and sings and all, but I didn't know they were. I heard about his cruises and all that stuff pre AEW, but yeah, I didn't know that they were actually on an episode of Raw.
Who would have thought he actually would become? When I was sitting with Pharaoh last year hosting, Pharaoh being a musician, he said to me, he was like, always said, Jericho says he's a musician. Where's his hit? Where's his hit? But then once Judas came out, he proved himself that he is multi-dimensional there.
Oh yeah, great song, great song. Still singing it in arenas today.
I can't tell you how many times I hear it. I bartend and people play it constantly.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I laugh because I'm like, they're not wrestling fans. They just enjoy the song.
No. Well, there's the crossover right there, mainstream.
Right.
There you go.
So let's go on till, let's see where we are. Let's take this one, then we'll take a quick break there. We're going to move on to December 7th, 1988 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. WCW Clash of Champions 4, Seasons Beatings. Well, the card itself was relatively insignificant, but this was the first time it had been under a WCW banner from the NWA banner, though. So, it is a relatively insignificant. I just lost my page. A relatively insignificant card there. It was the Fantastics defeated Eddie Gilbert and Ron Simmons. Dr. Death Steve Williams defeated the Italian Stallion. Ivan Koloff defeated Paul Jones. Road Warrior Animal defeated Dusty Rhodes by disqualification. The odd thing on this one was for a one-on-one match to control the six-man tag team title. So that was a little odd. And then the final match of the night was Ric Flair with Barry Windham defeating the Midnight Express, but the Bobby and Stan Lane version. So that's definitely a who's who of wrestling on there, even though it was a relatively insignificant card. But I just found that Dusty Rhodes Road Warrior Animal match a little bit odd there.
No kidding, yeah. And obviously this is Ted Turner's first pay-per-view, right? Because he had purchased WCW like before that. This is the first one under the WCW banner after NWA, so I would assume that's Turner, right?
Did he rebrand it right away to WCW, or did he wait?
I think he did rebrand it because I know NWA was under the Georgia Championship Wrestling at 6 o'clock on Saturday nights, and they changed that to World Championship Wrestling, but that was just a title. I think WCW got rebranded like 87, 88, if memory serves me right.
I think you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. Because I want to say, because I remember Ronnie Garvin, Hands of Stone won the title in '87. The big gold belt was still considered the NWA title, and after that, it was switched over to WCW. So
I think you're right, because I remember going to, one year when I went down. The only time I got exposed to this was going to Florida and visiting family. That's the only time I could watch it. And 1 year it was Georgia Championship Wrestling. Then the following year it was World Championship Wrestling.
Right. So it might have been it had been his first pay-per-view for Ted Turner. Cool. All right, good stuff.
So what do we got going? I think this is you. Back to you, Benny.
All righty. So December 7th, 1989, Collin County, Texas. Wrestling legend William Haystacks Calhoun passed away at the age of 55. Although he was a lifelong Texan, he was billed from, and I have no idea if this town even exists, like Buzzard Creek, Oregon is a fictional town, Morgan's Corner, Arkansas. And he initially debuted as Country Boy Calhoun when he broke into wrestling in the 50s, but he gained the name Haystacks when he appeared on Art Linkletter's house party, and he performed an exhibition of strength by tossing bales of hay. Good thing it wasn't like bags of cow poop. He would have had a whole different nickname, right? So, and he won a ton of championships, but all of them, around the country, all as part of a tag team, including the WWF Tag Team Championship with Tony Gurria. Now, there's a guy that should be in the Hall of Fame. Why is that guy not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, man, Rick Martel, my favorite tag team.
I do not. Tony Gurria was 5-time champion, tag team champion.
Yep.
Just solid as they come. Now, Haystacks was inducted posthumously in 2017.
Yep.
And Bruno even has said that, Bruno Sammartino, that one of the things that really helped elevate his career was when he wrestled Haystacks at the Garden, and Haystacks actually allowed Bruno to lift him up.
Yeah.
I mean, Bruno wasn't going to lift him up if Haystacks didn't want to. As strong as Bruno was, you're not lifting up a 600-pound guy. And he was legit 600 pounds.
Well, that's the art of putting someone over, right? I mean, doing something like that, allowing that to happen. So
I think it's the one and only instance where he was actually lifted off his feet.
Wow. Now, was it true that he had a strange body odor?
That I don't know.
I heard that he, because he was.
I would imagine at 600 pounds. I mean, you got all kinds of folds in your skin, and you might have like a ring ding junior.
Yeah, he wrestled barefoot, correct?
You forgot. He did. So you got that going on right off the get go.
Yeah, I mean,
he had to like eat pepperoni before a match, and it wasn't very pleasant in there.
Oh god.
Yeah, he might have. Yeah, it probably wasn't. Hopefully, asked for a little bit of extra combat pay when you wrestle the guy, but. Well, he lost. I remember when I think I was 14. I saw him at Sunnyside Garden.
Sunnyside Gardens in Queens, New York.
Yes, sir. And he was in a tag match. I forgot. I want to say Victor Rivera was his partner, but he got knocked. And a lot of his losses were countouts because once he got knocked out of the ring, there was no way he was coming back in. He couldn't make it back in, with the count.
Wow.
Very rarely got pinned.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big guy. I remember seeing him in the wrestling magazines growing up. Of course, he did. I never saw him wrestle live, but I used to see the old flashbacks and the videos and all that. He was a big man, very, very big man. Borderline circus act.
It was definitely an attraction. You didn't see him all the time, but yeah.
But hey, whenever he was on the card, good crowds would follow. So I guess
that's had the horseshoe, put the horseshoe in the ring on the ring post.
That's right. Yeah.
Pass win, and then got the business.
There you go.
All right, guys, I was supposed to take a break a second ago, but I forgot. So let's quickly take a break, and we'll be right back.
The Monty and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite 4-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
Tired of that same old breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Same old tasting scrambled eggs, burger, that dinner steak, ribs, or pork chops. Why not add a little bit of spice or just a touch of heat to make the difference? Change that scrambled egg with a little bit of Johnny Fabulous's John Cena Sr.'s $1 Million Jalapeno Hot Sauce. Great on burgers, steaks, chops, and those barbecued ribs.
And Nitro's Garage for all your automotive needs. Call 646-675-2349. That's 646-675-2349. For all your automotive needs, Nitro's Garage. Ask for Jack.
Do you treat your dog as part of the family? Well, so do we. So why not celebrate your pup's birthday with the ultimate party box? Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Party Pup Info, and let us make your pup's party or any celebration perfection.
M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Wrestling Remembered. I'm What a Day Joe, joined by the player and, of course, our producer in the booth, Bruce. We're coming back to you now. We are doing some, this time, going back December, the 7th to the 10th we're covering, guys?
Yes, sir.
And
4 more days.
We're back to me again. We're going to go back to December 7th, 1997 in Springfield, Massachusetts, as WWF presents D-Generation X in your house. This was a relatively successful event, held at a smaller venue, only 6,359 attendance, which is not bad for Springfield, Massachusetts, if you've been there, and 159,000 watching via pay-per-view, which is pretty good, actually. Now, this event signifying the crowning of Taka Michinoku as the first WWF light heavyweight champion. But more importantly, it's the first singles pay-per-view match between The Rock and Stone Cold. Now, I'll run down the card real quick. Obviously, Taka Michinoku defeated the late Brian Christopher for that WWF light heavyweight championship. And then we got Miguel Perez, Jesus Castillo Jr., and Jose Estrada Jr., also known as I can't even read that, Barracas.
Barricas, yeah.
They defeated, with Savio Vega, they defeated the Disciples of Apocalypse, which was changed B-Ball and Skull. I don't remember B-Ball. All right. Butterbean was shown on this pay-per-view as well, as he defeated Mark Merrow with Sable by disqualification. And then moving up the card, we have the New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg, and Jesse James and Billy Gunn. They defeated the Legion of Doom by disqualification. Let's make note of that. Triple H with the late China defeated Sergeant Slaughter in a boot camp match. And Jeff Jarrett defeated The Undertaker by disqualification in a singles match. And, of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated Rocky Maivia with Farouk, D'Lo Brown, and Kama Mustafa, which we all know is the Legion of Doom. So he retained his WWF Intercontinental title, but more significantly enough, that is the first time they wrestled together. And then, of course, finally, Ken Shamrock defeated Shawn Michaels with Triple H in China by disqualification. No title change hands. This is when Shawn Michaels was the WWF champion at the time. The pay-per-view overall was given 4 stars by the wrestling experts, but this is full-blown Monday Night Wars in full swing. And the pay-per-view was not considered a traditional pay-per-view because, remember, it was only the Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, Rumble, Mania, and those were the traditional 4. So they actually had, this was like a newer pay-per-view, so you didn't have to pay as much for it. I think it was like $30 as opposed to $50 for it. But this kicked off the Monday Night Wars, essentially. This is when things started to turn around for the WWF. More fittingly, you got Rocky Maivia involved now in a title match with Stone Cold Steve Austin. You got everything's coming together. The fire is starting to burn a little bit brighter for the WWE. And, you know, we're going to go into later on in the show what happened the night after. So big stuff here. But what got me to, I remember this too, because my son was watching it at this time. I was shocked that there was a pay-per-view on in the middle of the year, or towards the end of the year. I'm like, what pay-per-view is this? You're used to the regular pay-per-views. And it was called Degeneration in Your House. They had like this house. I think NXT did a replica of that like last year or 2 years ago. In Your House, they had the Bruce, this is your era, right? This is when the house would go crooked and all that stuff. And
yeah, this is when I was coming back into wrestling. Yeah, this is what I was coming out of college, and the NWO was such a hot angle at this point, and that kind of got me back into wrestling and started watching WWF product again. And this was really, the WWF was still hard to watch at this point, but it was getting to the point of where the Attitude Era was about to break. And I think they were fighting back and forth. The ratings were about equal at this point. It was they weren't quite winning, but they weren't. It was they were on their definitely fighting their way back up.
Yeah, what impresses me most about '97 is this is like. The internet is just coming around. It's just starting out. Right. And we didn't know what the ratings were. We didn't have access to television ratings like on the drop of a dime like we have today. So you had to wait sometimes a week or 2 weeks, sometimes even a month or a season to see how everybody stood with the ratings. But as computers evolved and technology evolved and the ratings war kept going on, the Monday Night Wars, this got pretty interesting in '97 because you knew something was going on with WWF.
This was like the WrestleBoard eras,
Exactly. Yeah, WrestleBoard.
Oh, yeah.
When the Wrestling Observer newsletter was actually physically mailed to you and not available online. Good stuff, though, nonetheless.
All right. Well, moving on to December 8th, 1980, Madison Square Garden. Pedro Morales defeats Ken Patera in 18 minutes, 51 seconds to win his first Intercontinental Championship. Pedro held the title for 194 days, about 6 months, before dropping it to the magnificent Morocco. He'd recaptured the belt several months later, and he held it this time for 425 days.
Yeah.
Pedro, I think, was a great champion, and as he would always say, I always ready for any kind of action. I was really, as a wrestling fan. Now, when Pedro won the title from Koloff in early 71.
71,
yeah, I was not. Now you got to, like, from my point of view, he was replacing Bruno. Bruno was my hero. nobody could replace Bruno. So I mean, like from my perspective, there was no way that Pedro was going to be, one of my favorites, but he kind of grew on me. I think he was a great champion. I mean, I guess towards the end, he was champion a little bit less than 3 years. But the gates started faltering late 73.
Yeah.
And that's when you had Stasiak take the title and Bruno's waiting in the wings to take it back 9 days later, which I think we're going to cover on this show as well. But I was really happy when they brought him back and they had him as the Intercontinental Championship in 1980 was still a very prestigious title. And I mean, if you look at this, a total almost 2 years between the two reigns.
Right. Yep. I became a fan in '81. Pedro. It was Backlund, Pedro, and Tony Greer, and whoever was the tag champions there. Those are the big three when I got into wrestling.
Yeah.
And Pedro is synonymous with the Intercontinental title. He's the ethnic background that he had. He was huge in New York. He was huge in Philadelphia, and he was very huge in Boston growing up. If Pedro was on the card, 15,000 people would be chanting Pedro's name, just like they would Bruno, definitely at the Boston Garden. So
Yes,
Pedro
sir.
Morales was a no-brainer Hall of Fame guy.
Oh, yeah. He
for
over
me.
big time.
But he could, when he slapped those hands, that's when you said any kind of action, he slapped those hands, that he would turn that crowd upside down just by clapping his hands. And he had that face, and he put his hands up, and it was like, wow, you knew he was ready for any kind of action.
When I started watching wrestling, Pedro was, kind of in his later parts of his career, and they always announced him as the great intercontinental champion. And it wasn't until several years later that I realized he had been a heavyweight champion too, because they completely never mentioned that from '84 to 1990. So it was only going back in reading wrestling magazines and learning a little bit more about the history that I learned that Pedro had been a world champion.
Right. Yeah, Pedro was great. I mean, his matches with Morocco Morales wars, talking with Bill Apter, the old Apter magazines, that them covering that feud was money for that magazine. It was right up there with Flair and Rhodes and all that stuff. Morocco Morales wars were huge, and everyone forgets the angle with him and Greg Valentine. Greg Valentine suplexed Pedro Morales on the concrete floor, and Pedro was shaking like a leaf, and he got carried off. But a lot of people forget that they had a tape fist match feud up and down the East Coast back then. Good stuff, though. Am I up again?
Yes, sir.
Again. All right.
Follow up.
All right. So we're coming off the heels of the next night. We just talked about the D-Generation X In Your House pay-per-view, which set up the Rock Stone Cold feud. Let's go to Monday night, the following Monday night, 24 hours later, December 8th, 1997. This is the very next night. Stone Cold surrenders the title to The Rock, declaring that he has nothing left to prove. Stone Cold then hits The Rock with a stunner, dumps the belt into a river. This allows Austin to move on to the WWF title picture. Okay, little things are a little bit out of whack here, and that's okay. So what happened here is Stone Cold... Vince McMahon wanted a rematch the next night on Raw. Stone Cold came out, says, I'm not going to fight The Rock again. I already beat him the night before. And then he's like, I don't care. You can take the title. Here you have it. So Vince McMahon declares The Rock the champion. So Stone Cold gives him the title. The Rock thinks everything's peachy keen. And what happens, lo and behold, Stone Cold gives The Rock the stunner and says, not only you're not going to get this title, you're going to see what I do with this title next week on Raw. Now, let's remember, folks, back in 97, Raw was always live 1 week, and then they taped it.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Following week, like that day or whatever. So what happened was on the following week, now they were in Portland, Maine. This is key here. The river that he threw the belt in, they showed the video, is the Pasquatica River, which borders Dover, New Hampshire, and Elliott, Maine. Believe that. So, and this is... so this was already in full motion now. Raw is starting to pick up steam now. I know in my time, I've never seen a wrestler throw a belt into a river on live TV. That was just unbelievable. And to top it all off, the following week, that Raw that they taped that he threw the belt into the river, do you know what kicked off Raw that night? Vince McMahon's promo saying they are now going to, the new Attitude Era is now upon us. And this right here is significant because we all know what happens after when the Attitude Era hits. Bruce, you're a big fan of the Attitude Era. You know what happens. It is nothing but puppies and blood and chair shots. And we all know what happens a year or two later. The ratings flip-flop and WWF overcomes WCW in the Monday Night Wars. But this is, no doubt, the birth of the Attitude Era. And too bad it was taped. It wasn't live. It was a tape show because they did it for a while until they finally got so hot they could sell out arenas every Monday night. So this is a very good one that you gave me. And now I did my research on this, and I'm like, yeah, I remember this. And that was all taped in one night, except that the other half was shown the following Monday. So it was good stuff. Good stuff back then.
Yeah, the miracle of TV back then. You could never get away with that nowadays. I mean, they try, but it just doesn't work the way it used to.
And I think you have to put the live logo if you're really live now, right? Isn't that an FCC thing now? If you are really live, you have to put live. You know when things are taped. When that live logo gets removed off the screen, the watermark, if it doesn't say live, it's really not live. And I think they have to do that now. I think that's an FCC regulation.
Let's fast forward one more year to December 8th, 2008. The Slammy Awards were brought back for the first time in 11 years since 1997. 14 Slammys were awarded, including Chris Jericho as Superstar of the Year, Miz and Morrison as Tag Team of the Year, and Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels for Match of the Year for their performance at WrestleMania 24. Wow. Just look at those names and the significance. You had a really young Miz, and let's face it, this is
15 years ago.
Yeah, 15 plus years ago, and he's still as relevant now, going up against Gunther.
Still going strong, yeah.
He's one of the he's an underrated talent for the WWE. He's one of their MVPs. He will do anything, and he can get absolutely anybody over just by talking. It's amazing. Superstar of the Year, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho at this point had already been wrestling for how many years? And for him to be still relevant, what is he, 50, 51 now? Yeah,
he's 51, 52, yeah.
He's slowing down now, yes. But let's face it, again, 15 plus years ago, and now he's still at the top of the game. And then the legend, Ric Flair. How old was Ric Flair at this point? Let's see. Ric Flair had to have been
59.
59 to have a match of the year. Yes, it was with Shawn Michaels.
Charlotte was still in college. She was at ringside for this match.
She would have been about 22. Yeah.
How crazy is that, though? Match of the year at 59.
Great match. I mean, really great match.
That's the infamous Shawn Michaels, "I'm sorry, I love you."
I love you. Yeah. And then kicked him in the mush after that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's huge. The Slammy Awards, they should bring those back.
Oh, I met Jimmy Hart. He had a bar and grill in Daytona Beach. And the one thing, I mean, we were chatting and I said, you know what, one of my favorite Jimmy Hart moments was, I said, when you sang Girls in Cars at the 1988 Slammys, and he just came to life. He goes, wow, you got a great memory. He just went on and on about that. But yeah, I miss the Slammys.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right, folks, moving on. We have December 9th, 1968, Mount Lebanon, PA. And yes, folks, it's true. Kurt Angle is born. That's right. Angle would go on to win a gold medal, the 96 Olympics, by the way. He'd win that gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
Oh, yeah.
Which we heard throughout his career so many times. Oh, it's true. It's damn true. Now, Kurt Angle's resume is just, worthy of mentioning. Held the WWE Championship 4 times. I forgot he was a WCW champion. Forgot about that one. He was a World Heavyweight Championship. He is the 10th Triple Crown champion and the 5th winner of the Grand Slam. And obviously in 2017, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And he had to do it. He said he had to do it. So when he got his Hall of Fame induction, he had to bring the milk out and pour the milk on him and drink that milk. So good stuff there. Kurt Angle born. And he's got a book coming out or a documentary or something like that, I read.
Great talent. Guy did it all.
You did it. You did it. All right.
All right, we're going way back now. December 9th, 1974. Toyohashi, Japan. Jack Briscoe defeats Giant Baba to recapture the NWA World Heavyweight title. Baba had defeated Briscoe the week before in Kagoshima, Japan. And so Baba would have two of the reigns, but he had the three reigns were combined 19 days. What would happen? NWA would, the first Briscoe, and then Race did it twice. They toured Japan. The opening match, they faced Baba. They dropped the title. Then they'd go tour for a week, maybe a few days, come back, and then they'd win the rematch, take the belt out of the country. And it's the testament to Baba and his professionalism, but it makes me wonder, why didn't the WWF do that, or even like the WWF? Bruno and Baba had a great relationship. You would have thought maybe they would have done that once or twice. And they did it once with Backlund and Inoki, but they didn't even recognize it as a title change.
Yeah, I recall we touched upon this last week, and like I said, it's just the respect thing with Giant Baba overseas and the NWA doing their due diligence and giving him the title and all that stuff. Yeah, why did the WWF not do it?
I wonder why Vince Senior wouldn't have thought about that.
I think it was too regionalized. Well, WWF was strictly Northeast.
Yeah, the WWF in my day, they didn't recognize anybody. According to the WWF, they were the only ones there. So
yeah, exactly.
It was very, very few times. I heard when Gorilla was talking to Bobby Heenan on one of the primetime wrestlings, he mentioned Baba. I think that was the only time I ever heard a reference that there was any other federation out there until Ric Flair came over with that with a big gold belt in, I believe it was 91, 92.
Well,
when
they would occasionally
on TV. They used to block it out because he stole it.
Well, when Blassie came to the WWF in the early '70s, they billed him as the Pacific Coast champion. Yep. But it was rare that anybody was acknowledged as a champion anywhere else.
Well, I remember watching the old Madison Square Garden matches on WWE Network, and I want to say 79 or 80, Harley Race fought somebody, a jobber or whatever, and they recognized him. He had his NWA title.
Yeah.
It was like he was on loan for the night. Oh, we need some guy to fill in. Oh, call Harley Race. He's down the street. I'm like, okay, so you have the NWA World Champion, and that belt looked beautiful, by the way. The 10 pounds of gold back then looked unbelievable. And here he is in like a warm-up match. I'm like, wow. This is pre-territory days, obviously. Pre-WWE days where you can loan people out, but to actually recognize in Bruno's house that that the NWA champion, who's technically your competition, so to speak, is in the building was kind of neat for me seeing that.
I wonder if they really regarded them as competition. I think it was just they were
true.
They each had their truly they had their territory and they stayed within their bounds.
Yep.
And
it would be loaned out. I remember growing up watching the Samoans win the titles. They beat Tony Garea and Rick Martel on this weekend, and then they're being managed on Georgia Championship Wrestling by Sonny King the next day, but no titles around their waist. So they flew up and down the coast, filling in and on that stuff. I remember watching the wrestling back then. You remember watching Georgia Championship Wrestling? They would tell you who's coming to the Omni that night.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
These people were on WWF TV a week before.
Right.
Oh, the Samoans are in town and this. And I'm like, wait a minute, they just wrestled in WWF. Like, I got confused back then, but that's when they would just loan the talent out. They would just say, okay, come on down. We'll grab you. You get you guys. But seeing Harley Race in Madison Square Garden with the NWA title was pretty cool in a WWF ring. That was kind of neat.
Nice. So let's fast forward 27 years to December 9th, 2001. Chris Jericho defeats The Rock to win the WCW World title, then defeats Stone Cold Steve Austin to win the WWF title and become the first undisputed champion. Let's talk about that. That was Vengeance 2001, and who would have thought a year after that brand split experiment where Shane had WCW, Steph had ECW, Vince has WWF, that it would fall flat on their face and they'd have to revamp this and kind of unify the titles. But that was what was going on at that point. But when you take a look at this card, what a great card for WWE. You had the APA defeating Billy and Chuck. You had Scotty 2 Hotty and Albert against Christian and Test. Edge defeated William Regal. Jeff Hardy defeated Matt Hardy. The Dudley Boys defeated Big Show and Kane. The Undertaker defeated Rob Van Dam for the Hardcore title. Trish Stratus defeated Jacqueline for the Women's Championship. Stone Cold defeated Kurt Angle for the WWF Championship on that first title match on the night. Chris Jericho defeated The Rock for the WCW World Championship. And then the culmination was Chris Jericho unifying those championships and becoming the first undisputed WWF champion. What hasn't Chris Jericho done?
I know.
when I saw him come in I wasn't a big fan of him in WCW as the Lions, whatever. But when he
Oh, the Lioness or whatever. Yeah.
yeah.
Lionheart.
Lionheart.
He
Yep.
came in as
Lionheart.
Y2J, and I was like, wow, this guy's going to be a solid, intercontinental guy forever. Well, the guy proved me wrong because the guy's done everything in wrestling that you possibly could. He's transcended wrestling as very few wrestlers ever had. So kudos to Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Chris Jericho, Y2K, that whole thing leading up to the Y2K thing, that was like, you talk about lightning in a bottle, because you had the Y2K thing going on, then the Y2J thing at the same time, and nobody knew what was going to happen. I mean, you talk about genius. That was unbelievable.
Y2K.
But hey, Bruce, quickly, the APA, what did it stand for? Do you remember what it stood for?
Acolyte Protection Agency.
Nice.
There you go.
I love that. JBL. Remember him? Gee.
Oh, yeah.
He was just John Bradshaw back then, right?
I liked him a lot better then.
Yeah. That was actually my favorite version of Bradshaw.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing.
Brutal.
Agree.
They were huge. They were wrestlers. There's no doubt about it. Him and Ron Simmons. Oh, yeah. Big time.
So let's go on to December 12th, 1972 in Rice Lake, Wisconsin. Ric Flair, fresh out of Vern Gagne's training camp, makes his professional wrestling debut, going to a 10-minute draw with George Scrap Iron Gadaski. 51 years later, we're still talking about Ric Flair. 50-year career. Wow.
Let's talk about Scrap Iron. That's a great nickname.
Oh, yeah.
Scrap Iron Gadaski. There you go. You don't hear that one anymore.
He was one of the AWA enhancement talents.
I was going to say, it's somebody I've never heard of.
No, you wouldn't. I mean,
wow. 51 years later, we're still Ric Flair is no doubt. Like I said, we talked about this last week. He is going to be that wrestler that dies in the ring, and whether it comes sooner or later, I have no idea. But he's getting back in the ring one more time. You just know it.
Now,
the man bleeds wrestling. No pun intended there, but he's personified the sport. So.
Weren't there a couple of other significant people in this class of Vern Gagne?
If it was class of 72, it would have been one of them would have been Patera.
Well, I thought it was
probably.
Yeah, I thought Brunzell and Steamboat were his class.
It was Greg Gagne, Flair, and Patera. I know at least them.
Wow.
And I think maybe even Iron Sheik.
Maybe.
I know Iron Sheik trained Steamboat, so Steamboat was like a couple classes after the Sheik.
Yeah, at 72 I know it was Flair, Patera, Greg Gagne, and I believe Iron Sheik at least was four of them.
Did Morocco,
many of them dropped out.
Magnificent Morocco come out of that class too? Because he was trained by Vern Gagne and a couple other guys.
Don't think so, but I mean, I guess it's possible.
Sounds familiar. I might be a little early in the years, but yeah, that's Vern Gagne. Unbelievable.
But I want to remember Ric Flair. I mean, back in the 70s and even into the early 80s, they called him the touring world champion. So you had a lineage. You had Lou Thez, you had Dory Funk Jr., you had Briscoe, you had Terry Funk, you had Harley, and then you had Flair. And these guys would go to every single territory and wrestle whatever every territory had their own championship. And wrestle that territory's champion, and either barely eke out a win, or go to do a 60-minute Broadway. And when they left the territory, what they had done was they had elevated whoever that top guy was, built up his credibility so that he could be more marketable. It was a flawless formula. But I want to remember Ric Flair. Ric Flair was a great world champion.
No doubt about it. Did Ric Flair ever do any booking that we know of?
I don't know. Not that I know, but
I mean, because you look at Dusty Rhodes and he did the booking and he was a champion and the Dusty finisher we talked about last week and all that stuff. I always wondered, did Ric Flair at any point in time do the booking? Because
that's a good question. I would say no, but
because if he's strictly all talent, that's amazing. I mean, to be able to, I mean, like I said, he eats and breathes professional wrestling.
Yeah, it's not going to end well for him, but God bless the guy.
He survived the last medical setback a few years back. I don't know if you've seen that ESPN 30 for 30. He was pretty much on his deathbed from drinking.
Right.
Still doesn't want to quit drinking. He survived a plane crash, heart attacks, injuries.
He's the proverbial cat with 9 lives.
The unbreakable. Yeah, unbreakable.
Every
Unbelievable.
wrestling ring will be haunted when he passes.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about somebody who lived the gimmick. Nobody lived the gimmick more than Ric Flair.
It's probably the best trivia question is where hasn't Ric Flair wrestled?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Unbelievable.
Iceland,
Iceland.
maybe. So and now here's December the 10th, 1973. Bruno Sammartino ends the 9-day, 11,000 picture reign of the man from the fictional town of Buzzard Creek, Oregon, the master of the hard punch, Stan Stasiak. So Stan had won it 9 days before from Pedro in Philadelphia. Very controversial ending. Their shoulders were on the mat, and they didn't actually. They both left the arena, I guess, to prevent the, as Billy Graham would say, the pandemonium. Of informing the crowd that there was a title change. So the title change wasn't announced, I believe, until that weekend on TV, and before you know it, he was a placeholder. It's a shame. I mean, Koloff. I think Koloff would have been a great, give him a reign like Billy had, 10-month reign. I think Koloff would have been a great transitional champion. They gave him 3 weeks. Stasiak, I could maybe see the 9 days, but
they probably didn't want to take that chance because, to me, theoretically, looking back, the only real heel champion that sold the place out was superstar Billy Graham.
Right.
He was lucky enough to get a 10-month reign, unlike Stasiak, where 9 days and Koloff for 3 weeks or whatever it was. And
I'll always believe that superstar's reign, even though he said Vince McMahon told him when he won the title, this is the date you're going to win it, and this is the date you're going to drop it. But I use the analogy of you get hired as a temp, right? Yeah. And you're told your tenure is your job length is 10 months. And but I'm going to do, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to make it impossible for you guys to get rid of me. And I'm going to so far exceed what you expected from me that you're going to beg me to stay. And I do believe that Billy Graham did that. And yet, I mean, he was a great champion.
If you read his autobiography, he went into a deep depression after the loss.
I could definitely see that.
He honestly thought that they were going to extend his reign, and he was making money. He was making bank for that company. He was the legitimate, champion and so forth.
All they had to do was put him in a tag match with Ivan Koloff and have the two of them feud, have Koloff turn on Billy Graham. Boom, now you got a babyface Billy Graham. You could have got another 10 months out of that.
And you probably would never have got it a Hulk Hogan then.
Yeah. But I mean, you could have sold it. You could have sold out the Garden probably for another close to a year.
Oh, sure.
And I believe they dropped the ball with that, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it is what it is at this point, but history made there. All right, December 10th. Last one, folks. December 10th, 1975, Miami, Florida. Terry Funk, the Funkster, defeats Jack Briscoe to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Funk would, along with his brother Dory, become the first and only brothers to win the NWA Championship. Terry Funk would hold the title for 14 months. And in 14 months, he went everywhere, from Australia to Japan to Singapore. He would lose it 420 days later to Harley Race in beautiful Toronto, Canada. And, of course, like I said, they are the only true brothers to hold the NWA World title. My biggest question on this is, why did Dory Funk Jr. fail to appear for this match? Does anybody know why?
Why Dory failed to appear?
He failed to appear. That's why Terry Funk took his brother's place this night, because Dory Funk failed to appear. Now, in my Google searches, the only thing I came up with was, I think, a year later that Dory Funk got in a truck accident, and he missed a couple of shows, but the dates don't jive. So I've tried to find out why Dory Funk Jr. was supposed to appear to face who was it? I forget who he fought, but Dory Funk Jr. did not appear, so Terry Funk took over. That's the weird part for me. So
was Dory actually booked to regain the title?
Yeah, I think so. He was either booked to regain or at least wrestle in that match. It's not like they were going far away. They're in Miami, Florida, so at a hotbed of NWA back then. I just don't understand what the reasoning was. I tried to find it, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Now I do know that the reason why Terry Funk's reign was so short, because Dory's was almost 5 years.
Yeah.
Briscoe's was, I think, 3. I mean, Gene Kiniski was 3. Typically, if Dez was 7 before that. So they typically held, you held the belt for at least 3 or 4 years. I guess he was having marital problems and from being on the road so much. and he dropped the belt so he could go back home and work on that because he was a great world champion and he drew everywhere.
But lo and behold, history made because your brother couldn't make it to the match.
Right.
So you fill in for him and you win the title.
Right.
So I don't know if it was a punishment thing. I don't know. I don't know how business worked back then, but usually if you're not going to be on the card, they state a reason why, or at least they put that asterisk in there on the Google.
Or they make some up. Usually travel delays,
So at this point, what was Terry Funk's gimmick at this point? Was he that cowboy gimmick or?
No. He was just brothers wrestling, right?
Just just a guy out of Amarillo, Texas. Yeah.
No. Vince McMahon put that Hoss act together for him and all that stuff. Because he's from Amarillo and all that stuff.
Double Cross Ranch in Amarillo, Texas.
Double Cross Ranch.
No, he didn't have. I don't think he had the branding iron back then or anything like that. He was just a badass.
They were just wrestlers, man. They went there. They wrestled 6 out of 7 nights a week and did what they had to do. So.
Great actor too, Terry Funk.
This was before I was born. So it's kind of cool that fast forward 10 plus 12 plus years is when I got to get exposed to him. And at that point he was Jimmy Jack Haas and Terry Funk in the WWF.
Yep.
That was great stuff back then. That was good for me because I had never really seen them wrestle until Vince brought them over. So I mean, if I saw them wrestle, it was either on old videos or wrestling magazines. You never got to see them in action until they appeared in a WWF ring. So that was kind of.
And then he morphed into Chainsaw Charlie, right?
Oh yeah, WrestleMania 14. I was there when they won the titles. Yeah, him and Mick Foley, Mankind.
And he wrestled forever. He retired about 38 times, but just. Couldn't stay away.
Another one like Ric Flair.
Yep.
Surprised he didn't die in the ring.
It would have been almost fitting for him because he was the ultimate wrestler.
Great actor. A hardcore wrestler after the age of 50. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And he was. He didn't mail it in. He was doing it all.
Yeah. Yeah. He wrestled with broken arms and everything. He did everything. He didn't let the night out. Yep. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Guys.
Great stuff.
So, guys, it looks like we've come to the end of another edition of Wrestling Remembered. Thank you, guys. That was fun. What a day. What do you got to plug before we get on out of here?
Well, tonight Wednesday nights at 7:00 on Facebook. What a Day in Centerville goes live, and of course, if you tune into the Monty and Pharaoh 30 show tomorrow night, Thursday night, 7:00, 8:00 Eastern time, 7:00 my time, I am going to dethrone somebody tomorrow. That's all. I'm out for blood tomorrow.
7 to 6 odds.
That's it. And the Twin Bill Baseball Podcast. Me, Benny, and Dan.
All right. Well, yeah, as What a Day was just saying, we got the 30 tomorrow, and I'm coming for that title too, so you guys both better watch out. And I'm going to turn this over to Benny to get us on out of here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Come back next week for another week of Wrestling Remembered.
What a day.
Later, guys.
Later.